Right now, a wildfire in North Texas has burned 80,000 acres, and the man in charge of fighting it says they've thrown everything they have at it with almost nothing to show for it. This is the Ross Fire in Palo Pinto and Jack counties, about 90 minutes west of Fort Worth. It started just after 1:30 on Monday afternoon along Highway 180 near Ross-Watson Road. The first estimate was 25 acres. 25 acres on Monday, 80,000 by Wednesday morning. It is 12% contained. Mandatory evacuations are in place in southern Jack County. A scout camp that's been in those hills for generations has been largely destroyed, and a county emergency management office posted publicly asking people to pray that the wind stays down. There's a specific reason this fire moved faster than anyone could react to, and it isn't only the wind. It's a number that changed in Texas over the last 7 days, and once you know it, everything about this fire makes sense. I'll get to it. Here's where things stand. If you want the sourced version of this as it develops, subscribe. This one is still moving. Follow the timeline because the pace of this is the whole story. The fire was reported just after 1:30 Monday afternoon near the community of Ross, west of Palo Pinto. Palo Pinto County Emergency Services District 1 put the initial size at 25 acres, a routine grass fire on a hot afternoon. Within an hour of firefighters arriving, it had gone to 5 alarms. That phrase gets thrown around, so it's worth being clear what it means. An alarm level is a request for resources. A 1-alarm fire brings the local engines. Each additional alarm pulls in more apparatus and crews, usually from progressively further away. Going to 5 alarms inside an hour means the first crews on scene took one look, understood immediately that they could not handle it, and started emptying the surrounding region of firefighting equipment before the fire was even 2 hours old. Inside 12 hours, it was 18,000 acres. By early Tuesday morning, it had reached 50,000 at 5% containment. At one point during that run, according to the incident reporting, it doubled in size in roughly an hour. By early Wednesday, the Texas A&M Forest Service had it at more than 80,000 acres and 12% contained. That's a fire that outran its own updates. Every figure officials released was already out of date by the time it reached anyone, and the people making decisions about whether to leave were working from numbers the fire had beaten hours earlier. It was also throwing spot fires up to a mile ahead of the main flame front. That detail matters more than the acreage because it means containment lines were being jumped before crews finished building them. You cannot hold a line when the fire is landing a mile past it. Spotting works like this. A fire generates its own column of superheated air, which lifts burning material, grass, bark, embers, high into the atmosphere. Wind carries that material downrange, and it comes down still burning. On a day with the right heat and wind, embers travel astonishing distances and land in fuel that's already primed to catch. So the fire isn't advancing as a line, it's leapfrogging, starting new fires ahead of itself, and those new fires merge back into the main front. That's how 25 acres becomes 18,000 in a working day. Here's the number I mentioned, and it explains the rest. 77% of Texas is now in drought. That's a 20 percentage point increase from the previous week. Not the previous season, the previous week. 3/4 of the state moved into drought conditions in 7 days. North Texas specifically has gone more than a month without measurable rainfall. Every stalk of grass, every stand of brush across those ranch lands has been giving up moisture to the air for weeks with nothing putting it back. Then Monday happened. Dallas-Fort Worth hit 109 degrees, breaking the record of 107 set for that date in 2023. The overnight low only fell to 86, which tied the area's all-time warmest minimum temperature for the 9th time this year. An extreme heat warning was in effect across both counties, with 109 forecast again Tuesday. Fine fuels, grass, light brush, respond to heat and humidity within hours, not days. On a 109-degree afternoon, with humidity in the teens, they don't need much. Palo Pinto County officials describe the fuel load and weather together as a perfect storm. Add gusty south winds pushing the fire north out of Palo Pinto County and into Jack County, and you have the conditions that turn 25 acres into a 5-alarm fire before the first crews had finished arriving. There's one more factor working against North Texas that's easy to miss. Grassland fires behave differently from the timber fires people picture when they hear wildfire. A forest fire has to climb into the canopy, throw embers, and work through heavy fuel that takes real heat to ignite. It's violent, but it's comparatively slow, and crews can sometimes get in front of it. Cured grass has none of those breaks. It ignites instantly, burns through in seconds, and the flame front travels at whatever speed the wind is moving. There's no ladder from ground to canopy because there's no canopy. There's just a line of fire crossing open country as fast as the air crosses it. That's why a grass fire can put 18,000 acres on the ground in 12 hours, while a timber fire of the same intensity might take a week. And it's why ranchland fires produce these enormous acreage figures with comparatively low structure counts. The fire covers ground at extraordinary speed, but most of that ground has nothing on it, until it reaches something that does. This is ranch country, not wilderness, and the evacuation picture shows how quickly it reached people. Jack County issued a mandatory order for its southern end, near and east of Barton's Chapel, telling residents to leave immediately by heading east on Highway 281. A second instruction covered residents along County Road 2210 toward Highway 281. The National Weather Service office in Fort Worth was pushing evacuation directions out on social media at 2:54 in the morning, which tells you what kind of night it was for the people in those areas. Jack County's entire population is about 9,500 people. That figure is worth holding on to because it reframes what mandatory evacuation of southern Jack County actually means. This isn't a suburb where a few thousand people relocate to a hotel across town. It's a rural county where the nearest neighbor might be a mile away, where the roads out are 2-lane, and where the emergency notification reaching you at 3 in the morning depends on cell coverage that isn't guaranteed. The sheriff's office and the fire department are small. There is no surge capacity. In Palo Pinto County, residents north of Fortune Bend Road extending up to State Highway 16 at FM 337 were strongly advised to leave. The sheriff's office was careful to say the recommendation was precautionary rather than a mandatory order, but urged anyone who needed extra time or assistance to go immediately. That distinction matters. It's aimed squarely at elderly residents and anyone who can't move fast, and it's the group most likely to die in a fire like this. An evacuation center opened at the Twin Lakes Recreation Center on Highway 59 in Jacksboro. And because this is cattle country, a second one opened that most people never think about. The Graham Livestock Commission offered space at the old Mineral Wells sale barn for displaced livestock, a holding station for families who had to move animals ahead of the flames. Roads went down across the area. US 180 closed between South FM 4 and FM 919. Highway 254 closed. FM 4 closed. Jacksboro schools delayed their start by 2 hours. And through all of that, the fire was moving towards something that had been sitting in those hills for a very long time. The Longhorn Council of Scouting America has confirmed that many buildings at Worth Ranch, its camp property in Palo Pinto County, suffered catastrophic damage. No scouts, campers, or guests were on the property when the fire reached it. All camp personnel evacuated safely. Sit with the timing on that for a second. Late August, the week before school starts across Texas, a camp that would have been full of kids a few weeks earlier, empty on the one afternoon a fire came through it. That's the difference between a property loss and a catastrophe, and it came down to the calendar. Beyond Worth Ranch, at least 5 structures have been destroyed, with damage assessments still underway and more structures at risk. Officials have been clear that the count is preliminary and will likely rise once crews can safely get into the burned areas. That gap between what's burned and what's been counted is normal, and it's worth knowing so you can read these numbers properly. Damage assessment teams cannot enter a burn area while it's actively burning or while hotspots and unstable structures make it dangerous. So the official figure on any fast fire lags the reality by a day or more, sometimes several. When a county says at least 5, they mean 5 that someone has physically stood in front of and documented, not 5 total. On an 80,000-acre fire through ranch country, dotted with barns, outbuildings, equipment sheds, and scattered homes, the final number will be higher. No injuries have been reported. On a fire that has burned 80,000 acres across 2 counties in under 48 hours, that's the most important number on the board, and it's not luck. It's the mandatory orders that went out in the middle of the night. Step outside Texas for a moment, because this exact scenario has already played out in this exact county. In 2011, the 1001 Ranch Fire burned through Palo Pinto County near Possum Kingdom Lake. It covered about 6,500 acres, a fraction of what Ross has burned. and it destroyed 39 homes and 9 RVs. 28 of those were single-family houses. National Guard Blackhawks and Chinooks were skimming water off the lake to fight it. 6,500 acres, 39 homes gone. Ross is at 80,000. The reason those numbers don't scale directly is where the fire goes. The 101 Ranch fire ran through a developed lakeside area. Ross has spent most of its life so far in open ranchland, which is why the structure count has stayed low relative to the acreage. But that's a matter of direction, not luck, and direction is decided by wind. And here's the part that reaches you wherever you are. Ranchland, foothills, brush country, forest edge. The common factor isn't the vegetation. It's that people build at the boundary of it. If the last street in your town backs onto open grass or timber, you are living on the same kind of margin as the families around Barton's Chapel, and the thing that put them in a shelter at 3 in the morning was one hot afternoon and a month without rain. The drought map that jumped 20 points in a week doesn't stop at the Texas line either. Fine fuels cure the same way everywhere. The response has been substantial, and the details show what fighting a fire in 109-degree heat actually demands. Texas A&M Forest Service crews are working it alongside a TIFMAS strike team, the state's mutual aid system, pulling departments in from outside the area. More than 100 firefighters have been on scene, with private bulldozers cutting line along the fire's flanks. Aircraft have been dropping water and retardant, dipping out of nearby reservoirs to refill. And crews have been rotating off the fire line specifically to cool down. Not to rest, to survive the temperature. When the ambient air is 109 degrees and you're wearing full protective gear next to something burning, heat casualties become a genuine operational limit on how long anyone can work. On Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott announced FEMA had approved a fire management assistance grant for the Ross fire, saying Texas would provide all necessary resources to protect Texans in Palo Pinto and Jack counties. Those grants are worth understanding because they're the mechanism that keeps rural counties solvent through a fire like this. A fire management assistance grant covers up to 75% of eligible firefighting costs, and it's approved while the fire is still burning rather than afterward. The threshold for getting one is that the fire threatens to become a major disaster, meaning FEMA looked at Ross and agreed it could. For counties the size of Palo Pinto and Jack, that matters enormously. Aircraft, dozer contracts, mutual aid crews, and equipment run into figures a rural county budget simply cannot absorb. Without federal reimbursement, the choice for a small county fire district becomes whether it can afford to keep fighting, which is not a decision anyone should have to make while a fire is running toward a town. But this fire isn't landing on a system with room to spare. The United States has been at National Preparedness Level 5, the highest there is, for 38 straight days. Since the 18th of July, the 10-year average preparedness level for August is 4, not 5. The last time the country sat at 5 for the entire month of August was 2021. Roughly 8 million acres have burned nationally this year, about double the 4 million burned by this same date last year. So when Ross needs more crews, more dozers, more aircraft, they come out of the same national pool that Reno and Washington and Oregon are already drawing from. And there are smaller fires burning simultaneously in Wise, Parker, and Hamilton counties, in Texas alone. 12% containment means crews have secured about 1/8 of the fire's edge. The other 7/8 is open, and inside the perimeter the fire is still burning. Everything from here depends on the weather, and there's a small piece of good news in it. Temperatures were forecast to drop to around 100 on Wednesday, down from 109, with the chance of a stray afternoon thunderstorm developing. Any drop in heat helps fuels recover moisture overnight and gives crews a window to build line. The catch is that a stray thunderstorm in these conditions cuts both ways. Storms that produce little rain can still produce lightning and erratic outflow winds, the kind that push a fire in a direction nobody planned for. Crews watching that forecast are hoping for the rain and bracing for the wind. The fire is still being driven north into Jack County. Jack County Emergency Management put its own position plainly on social media, asking people to be in prayer that the wind would not get too active and the fire activity would stay at a minimum, and noting there was still a lot of smoke with crews working hotspots. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. Officials have said only that it began as a grass fire. Nobody has determined how it started, and anyone telling you otherwise right now is guessing. The Ross Fire has burned more than 80,000 acres across Palo Pinto and Jack counties at 12% containment. Mandatory evacuations are in effect in southern Jack County and precautionary evacuations in Palo Pinto County. Many buildings at Worth Ranch have suffered catastrophic damage. At least 5 structures are destroyed with assessments ongoing. US 180 and Highway 254 are closed. FEMA has approved a fire management assistance grant. No injuries have been reported. The cause is under investigation. If you're anywhere in North Texas, the conditions that produce this fire haven't gone anywhere. 77% of the state is in drought, and fine fuels are as receptive as they get. Don't burn anything outdoors, don't drag chains, and be careful where you park on dry grass. A catalytic converter is hot enough to start exactly this. If you're in or near an evacuation area, go when you're told rather than when you can see flames. The people who die in fast-moving grass fires are almost always the ones who waited to confirm the danger themselves. Keep your vehicle fueled, know 2 routes out, and if you have livestock, make those arrangements now instead of at 2 in the morning. The Ross Fire was 25 acres on Monday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, it had burned an area larger than the city of Fort Worth's entire footprint, and 88% of its edge was still open.